If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment. Never let the future disturb you. You will meet it, if you have to, with the same weapons of reason which today arm you against the present. The things you think about determine the quality of your mind. Misfortune nobly borne is good fortune. Regard a friend as loyal and you will make him loyal. Limiting one's desires actually helps to cure one of fear. Cease to hope and you will cease to fear. As fear and hope are, the two of them march in unison like a prisoner and the escort he is handcuffed to. Fear keeps pace with hope. Both belong to a mind in suspense. To a mind in a state of anxiety through looking into the future. Both are mainly due to projecting our thoughts far ahead of us, instead of adapting ourselves to the present. You should live in such a way that there is nothing which you could not as easily tell your enemy as keep to yourself. Nothing is burdensome if taken lightly, and nothing need arouse one's irritation, so long as one doesn't make it bigger than it is by getting irritated. What really frightens and dismays us is not external events themselves, but the way in which we think about them. It is not things that disturb us, but our interpretation of their. Think of your many years of procrastination. How the gods have repeatedly granted you further periods of grace of which you have taken no advantage. It is time now to realize the nature of the universe to which you belong, and of that controlling power whose offspring you are. For men sell themselves at various prices. This is why when Florus was deliberating whether he should appear at Nero's shows taking part in the performance himself, Agrippinus replied, "Appear by all means." And when Florus inquired, "But why do not you appear?" he answered, "Because I do not even consider the question." For the man who has once stooped to consider such questions and to reckon up the value of external things is not far from forgetting what manner of man he is. How does one live well? It is a question that our fellow human beings have been pondering for centuries. Out of that simple question, many philosophies and religions have been born. But no philosophy does a better job of explaining the ideas for living well in a practical way than Stoicism. The emperor-philosopher Marcus Aurelius, once the most powerful man on earth, was also a practitioner of Stoicism. Marcus wrote a collection of thoughts, ideas, and rules for life in what was later published as Meditation. He wrote the things in that book for his own use. He was practicing the philosophy of Stoicism. I read that in The Inner Citadel by Pierre Hadot, a book that analyzes meditations. In that book, I also read that Marcus had 3 rules for life that are found throughout meditations. Hadot identifies the 3 rules for the life of Marcus Aurelius as the following concepts: 1. Judgment, 2. Desire, 3. Impulse toward action. As I was reading The Inner Citadel, I had difficulty grasping what Hadot meant by those 3 concepts. He does not tell us what to do with this information. He only says that Marcus Aurelius's work was dominated by 3 rules that are based on judgment, desire, and an impulse toward action. Because when I talk about rules for life, I think about directives. I think about do this and don't do that. I use these types of rules in my life all the time. Look at rules like shortcuts that make life simple. By this, I do not want to minimize the work of Hadot. In fact, I think his analysis of philosophy is the best that I have ever read. His conclusions about Stoicism and philosophy are spot on. And if you want to study Stoicism, I recommend Hadot's work. But it's not a light read even for well-read people. That's why I sat down to translate the 3 rules for the life of Marcus Aurelius as found by Pierre Hadot in plain English. Here they are. For every rule, I mention a Marcus Aurelius quote that explains the idea. We need to put that quote in context. Marcus realized that we make judgments about everything. But instead of making a pure judgment, we make value judgments. We add a personal twist to our judgment. In the above example, Marcus talks about when something bad happens to you. In that case, you can say, "So-and-so happened to me." The last sentence is the value judgment part. So when you drop that last part, you don't let the bad thing to make an impact on you. The event merely happened. Let's say you lose your job. What's worse, the actual event of losing your job, or you worrying that you will never find a new job? Of course, it's the last part, the worrying. When you make a judgment like that and give meaning to events, you not making a pure judgment. Did something happen? Fine. Do something or move on. In his meditations, Marcus continuously repeats to himself that most things in life are outside of his control. He realized that life is unpredictable. In 2,000 years, nothing has changed about that. Shit happens to you all the time. Instead of resenting it or desiring a different life, work with what you have. We all know this piece of advice. If life gives you lemons, make lemonade. So the overused platitude goes. Marcus takes it one step further. Instead of making the best of what happens to you, love it. He knew that most of the things we desire are outside of our control. Look at what you desire. More money, a social media following, a better job, a new car, or maybe that your partner will always love you, that you always keep your friends. He desired none of the above. He only desired what's inside his control or what happened to him. He had faith in something bigger than him. What happened to him happened for a reason. Most things in life that happen are not up to you. There is an abundance of advice on how to improve your life. What's unique about advice from Stoicism is that the advice is useful to anyone in any circumstance. Whether you are facing hardship or success, there is something to gain from learning about the philosophy. Philosophy from the great Stoics is even integrated into some forms of psychotherapy. While there is a lot you can do to change, sometimes the best change comes from not doing. Here are 7 things the great Stoics advised against. According to the great Stoics, people must accept there are things in their lives that they cannot control. Throughout most of our lives, things happen that are outside of our control. No matter how hard we try, we cannot control things that happened in the past, things that might happen in the future, or the thoughts and actions of other people. The great Stoics recognize that there is a limited amount of control people have over their lives. To be happier, the Stoics believed people should stop focusing on things outside of their control. Instead, the Stoics recommended people focus on what is in their control. Epictetus was a Stoic with little control over certain aspects of his life. He was born a slave, had a crippled leg, faced exile from Rome to Greece, and lived in poverty. Despite his hardships, Epictetus had a positive outlook. He believed, although he could not control his external circumstances, his mind, opinions, and desires were his to control. According to Epictetus, it is up to us to keep our own peace of mind despite external events. The Stoics believed in training your mind. While this might seem irrelevant to some people and a waste of time, the Stoics believed it was important not to let your mind get away from you. Training your mind involves discipline and motivation toward improving yourself. Seneca recommended journaling at the end of each day. He recommended writing down when you became irritated by something trivial or acted angrily to someone. This way, Seneca believed you were taking stock of each day and hoping to do better the next day. Marcus Aurelius had a different strategy to train his mind. He would tell himself every morning that he was probably going to encounter a lot of angry people and stressful situations. This virtue of temperance is often forgotten but not unimportant. The Stoic virtue of temperance is about moderation. Moderation is key to living a well-balanced life. Forgetting moderation leaves people in the extremes. As a society, the extremes are the most talked about. There are people who value their careers and don't value sleep. People are also often grouped at one end of a spectrum based on their character. For example, people may be categorized as reckless or timid, lazy or insatiable, and insecure or arrogant. However, the reality is people are on a spectrum of qualities. While there are desirable virtues, too much of one quality can become a problem. For example, a person can become too timid or too ambitious. Remembering the Stoic virtue of temperance is a reminder to think of your life in terms of moderation. Another Stoic lesson is to stop falling prey to negative emotions. In day-to-day life, unpredictable situations arise. These situations can give rise to intense emotions. Many great Stoics talk about the importance of being aware of your emotions and recognizing the role they play in decision-making. Marcus Aurelius talked about the importance of being free from the passion of emotions. This idea is often confused with being free of emotion. However, Aurelius' idea is about being free of the frenzy of emotion, not emotion itself. Being free from the frenzy of emotion means being free of acting on the impulse of an emotion. An individual can feel intense anger, but not immediately punch the closest person. One negative emotion many people get stuck on is anger. This brings out another Stoic lesson not to hold on to anger. The Stoic philosopher Seneca wrote extensively about anger after his brother Novatus asked him how to be less angry. Too often, anger does more harm than good. While anger might seem like a defensive virtue, it is acting as a substitute for other virtues. One strategy to cope with anger is to ask, how is getting angry going to help? Seneca said the cure for anger is delay. This is because delaying our response when we are angry gives us a better chance of rejecting our desire for passionate actions. The Stoics understood the importance of time. Unlike material possession, once time is gone, it is impossible to regain, and time will continuously move forward. The expression memento mori is famously attributed to the Stoics. The expression means, the Stoics also believed that people allow others and obligations to take up their time too easily. While calendars and schedules assist with the organization of our daily lives, they were not meant to be a cage. The Stoics remind us that although it feels like there is endless time, there really isn't. One of the most valuable lessons the great Stoics advised against was being a know-it-all. Epictetus was at one point a teacher of philosophy. He believed it was impossible for someone to learn what they think they already know. He applied this idea to his students, who said they wanted to learn but acted as if they already knew all the answers. Epictetus said, people should always stay a student and recognize that there is always more to learn. Learning philosophy or any subject requires throwing away vanity and conceit. The best students leave egos aside and embrace the joy of ignorance, whether trying to learn at school or even have a conversation.